Hello and welcome to the 20th episode of the DRM Gamecast. I'm your host, Mr. Blackmagic, and here with me, as always, DOA Head and Randall Thor. But we have a
What's going
special
on?
guest today, Mr. Dan Webb. How's it going,
Hello,
sir?
not too bad. How's it going yourselves? You all good?
Oh, I'm great.
Oh
Another
yeah,
day in
excellent.
paradise.
But now, real quick though, what do you like to be called, Webb or Dan, or which?
You can call me whatever you want. Well,
Because
within reason.
I'm
Hi,
assuming
sweetie.
most people on Xbox just call you Webb.
Yeah, and a lot of people in real life actually call me Web as well. So yeah, Web works.
Webb it is. All right, so you want to just tell people a little bit about yourself real quick, just a little brief intro.
The pedigree information, the basics.
Yeah. So this could go on for hours, but I'll keep it short. Basically, yeah, I'm a guy. I'm 32 years old. I live in the UK. I have a couple of websites that you might have heard of: xboxachievements.com, playstationtrophies.org. And I have been running those two websites for 9 years next February. So it's been a large portion of my life, you could say.
And how much into achievements are you actually?
You know, I'm still into them. Originally, I was like massively into them, but obviously, as the websites have got bigger, I've had less time to game. So I would say these days I pick and choose my games, but I still go after everything. So, for instance, I've been playing Dragon Age Inquisition quite a lot recently, and I've been going after all the achievements in that. I'm getting pretty close to getting all but the difficulty achievements, but I tend to operate now on the if I love a game enough, I will go after all the achievements. Whereas when I started gaming, I would just go after anything and everything. Although I still don't have 1,000 in Avatar. I've never played it.
What?
I know,
That's
right?
blasphemy.
You're like the only one on X360A who doesn't have that game completed. Then
I think that's for me though. That's a bit of a kind of that's my shining light to say, like so to speak, because I haven't got that and I've still got a fairly decent score.
yeah.
So even though you have both Xbox and PlayStation, I take it you prefer the Xbox then?
Yeah, even with the changing generation, obviously the PS4 came out the gates, well, hit the ground running, pretty much better kind of specs and stuff like that. And it's only until recently the Xbox One has kind of pulled back, and especially with the whole Connect stuff and the processing power being pushed back into games. But even though the PS4 is a more powerful machine, I've still my Xbox One is my go-to machine. I use my PlayStation for exclusives and stuff, and obviously I have to review games on it. But I'm still Xbox One because that's what my friends play, and when I get a chance to game socially, I want to be playing with people that I know and want to play with, rather than people that I don't know and don't want to play with on the PlayStation. Plus, I hate the mic, the Bluetooth thing for the
Yeah.
PlayStation. So
Oh yeah, that was just a throw in for we got a pile of these in the storage. Just throw them in here.
exactly, right?
I almost thought you were gonna say you hate the controller, and DOA would have
That's
loved
what I
it
was
more.
hoping he was gonna say, because that's what I've always said. I hate the PlayStation controller. Like it loses on that alone. I don't care how many pieces it's got.
I don't mind the new PS4 controller. It's not as bad as the PS3 one. Obviously, you've got more the R2
No, you're right.
and more like triggers now, right? Which is the problem with the PlayStation 3s.
Yeah.
But yeah, it still doesn't. It's not anything on the Xbox controller in my eyes, anyway.
No, that's what I always said. I mean, I agree with you though. The 4 is better than any previous controller they've done, but it still doesn't touch the One controller or even the 360 controller to me. So,
Yeah. Well, the 360 was the best for many years, right? I mean, it came out of nowhere. Considering you look at the Xbox, the original Xbox pad. Oh my God, that was just
Oh
it
yeah.
The
was
Duke.
huge.
The big fat one. Oh, I hated
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, it was like taking a brick and playing a game on a brick.
oh come on, that sweet black and white button. Who didn't want that?
Well, at least it doesn't have a touchpad, right?
Oh
Oh
god,
god, yeah.
that might have been a deal breaker for the Xbox One for me. They had a fucking touchpad on the controller.
Yeah, I think I might have been with you on that one.
So all
So
of us are into achievements, and we've all talked about how we originally got into achievements. What originally made you get into them?
So I bought my Xbox 360 on launch. I was a student at the time, so I used my student loan to pay for my Xbox 360. Before that, I was quite a big gamer. I wrote a couple of pieces on the site actually. The original game that got me kind of chasing down every little kind of morsel of every bit of content in every game was GTA 3 back on the PS2. Just because I saw that 100%, and I was like, oh shit, man, I want to get that 100%. So many years ago, that kind of set me off on being rewarded for doing games. Although the reward in that wasn't great. So when achievements came out, literally at launch, I was pretty much hooked instantly. As soon as that first one popped, I was like, well, what the hell is that? Can't remember my first one, but the first game I remember playing religiously until I completed it was Call of Duty 2, and doing that on Veteran.
Yeah.
Ever since that game, I've been hooked. So, yeah, I would say it's Call of Duty 2. That was the big one. And then, obviously, when I wanted to look at the achievements, I went on the internet, and there was a site called Xbox360achievements.com back then. And obviously, that's where a lot of the senior staff came from originally. And I don't know whether you know the story behind that.
No way. So there was already a site called Xbox360achievements.com?
Yeah, so in December 2006, I do believe it was, someone else set up an achievement site called Xbox360achievements.com. We were all there. I was there, Alex was there, Creech was there, and Tron was there, Legion, and all the kind of the original King, all those members. We were all part of that site, and it was run by somebody called, I think his name was Brad Grew. He's a big gamer. He was like us. He set this site up. I originally went on there just to chat and to find out the best way to do. I think it might have been some Perfect Dark stuff. I was looking to boost really early on. And yeah, so after about a month, he went AWOL and there was nobody updating the site. So that's when Alex, Routine X on our site, went off and built a site for us to move across to so that we could update it and get the new lists on, update the forums, move the forums and stuff like that. So yeah, that was way back in 2006. And then, no, 2005, sorry. And then February 2006, we launched Xbox360achievements.org. And that's how it came to life.
And back then there was two achievement sites you could go to. I remember the great wars between X360A.org and Achieve360.
They say wars. People say wars all the time. And we really weren't that bothered. They were very, very kind of... We had nothing against them. Obviously, there's always going to be competitors when you have websites on the internet, right? I mean, anybody can build a site. So we always expected competition. But they used to act really hostile towards us. We weren't too bothered about it. But yeah, then obviously our members, a lot of them saw what Achieve was saying to us, and then they jumped in, and it was a little bit hostile at times. But I mean, even now we focus on what we're doing as opposed to what everybody else is doing, and that's how we've always approached building our sites, building our communities, building our features and stuff like that. So we just focus on what we can achieve and what we do, because otherwise we'll spend all of our lives worrying about other people that we won't get anything done on our end. So yeah, there were a few sites back then, and because it was early on, a lot of other sites tried from an early age, like from probably all the way up until 2007 to compete. And then most of them just, because it's a lot of work, especially with the achievement lists. In the early days, we had to manually add every single achievement. So I remember spending about an entire week adding 50 lists onto our site when we moved
individual achievement for each individual list.
Yeah, so that's every single, and so I was copy and pasting all the text. I had to save the image from Xbox.com onto my computer and then upload it onto our server and then tie the image to the individual achievement. So yeah, I spent probably a good week adding 50 lists. And this was while I was trying to do other stuff back then, because obviously it was just a hobby at the time. So yeah, it dominated our lives back then in terms of just adding the lists, which was fun.
Did you finish school, or did the site take off and you end up quitting and just focusing on that?
Luckily, because it's weird in the UK. I don't know how it operates in America, but we get a lot of downtime when we're studying. For us to go away and do our own studying by ourselves, that doesn't tend to happen. People just go away and they end up playing video games all day or going to the pub. So I had a lot of free time. By the time I got to the end of my degree, I actually got my degree, and that's when I decided that we could turn the sites into a business and do it for a living, because that's what we wanted to do. So it kind of, in terms of timing, pretty much perfect. So I didn't have to leave. I didn't have to drop out. I got my degree, and then I had to go and turning it into a business. And yeah, that was 6 years ago, I think. Yeah, 6 years ago. So I think it's working. I think.
So what's it?
Obviously.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, what's it like running a huge website, like day-to-day stuff? Like, what do you do for it?
A lot. So have you heard of the saying, "Jack of all trades, master of none"?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I kind of see myself. So obviously we've got Rich and Lee that do the news most of the day. So I'll speak to them about news stuff we need to cover, and then I'll speak to them about features that we want to do, videos and stuff like that. So that's the one side, the editorial side. Then there's the side where I'm constantly speaking to Alex all day about new features, about issues that are popping up on the forums, issues that are coming, like people are coming to me with. So I'll get a lot of people come to me saying this isn't working. So there's a lot of bugs that you don't see that only happen for a small percentage of the users. So we try and work those out with the users and stuff. And then there'll be things like making sure that everything's up to date on both sites, making sure that we have a lot of ad partners. So I have to deal with a lot of the ad partners as well. So they go out and they sell the ads for us, and then they'll speak to us. And then there's all the business side of it. So obviously, to be a business, we have to make money, and then we have to spend money, and then I have to look at new opportunities to grow. And because it's the internet, you have to stay ahead of the curve. So we're looking about what trends are happening. I'm also looking at things like stats as well. Are we losing traffic? People going to the right place? Then there's the SEO stuff. So I'm making sure that people who search for something on Google get what they want as soon as they come onto the page. So there are about 100 jobs that I do every week that I have to just constantly keep doing. And on top of that, I probably get like 300 emails a day, and I have to try and keep on top of those. So yeah, it's a lot of little bits and pieces. That's my role, especially. I mean, Alex is completely different. Obviously, Alex spends all day coding, making sure the servers are alive, writing new scripts for new things that we're doing in the future, planning new scripts, obviously liaising with the staff and stuff, like new scripts and old scripts, and see whether everything's working. So yeah, it's a multifaceted machine where there's a lot going on at one time that a lot of people really don't see, and it's very hectic.
Yeah.
So do you have like so you got like the group that just works on X360, and then because you run both websites, right?
Yes,
PlayStation.
correct.
So then you have a different set of people running the PlayStation side. Do you have like them kind of like competing against each other to see like who can make a better site? Because I notice sometimes when I go to the PlayStation side, you have it organized a little bit different than the Xbox side.
In terms of what?
Like back in the day, like I liked the Chief 360 because for one simple reason, because the forums were just if you wanted to search for a game that was it was in A. You didn't have to find the genre and then find it on the list. Like PlayStation trophies, it's like, here's this if you're this PS3 games and then B. But on the X360A, it's still like, separated by genre and just the list of all the games.
Okay, I see. So yeah, so the two sites, it's quite weird, or it works, so we don't really argue with it. So yeah, obviously me and Alex run and own both sites, so we still manage them. In terms of on the front end, things like the editorial stuff, so the writing in terms of the news and all that stuff, that's Lee and Rich on both sites. We have the same reviewers, the same freelancers who do reviews and stuff like that. But then when it comes to the community side, so the forum side, it's down to, so obviously Creech on the Xbox side looks after all of that. And then we have another team on the PlayStation side. So we have, it's a bit of a democracy. So the mods on the PlayStation side will want the forums set up a different way to the mods on the Xbox side. So yeah, we have the same kind of overall, like, people at the top, but then everybody else underneath is completely like platform specific, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Totally.
one thing that that you just reminded me of that the PlayStation forums do is with a lot of their games when they're making achievement guides, they'll have a poll for difficulty where
Yeah.
everyone just votes on difficulty and just take the average, and that's the rating that goes into the achievement guide. The Xbox side, they don't do that. I wish they would do that because it's just subjective difficulty. If one guy is amazing at a game and he's like, it's a 4, and then it's actually really hard, or one guy thinks it's really hard and it's really not that hard, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree. And that is probably down to the fact that the PlayStation site came around, I think it was 3 or 4 years after the Xbox site. So they had the benefit of foresight. So they knew what was going to happen. And they knew, because of how we run the Xbox site, this was how we would run the PlayStation site. So from a very early, I think it was probably like in the first couple of weeks, people were like, can we do this? And we're like, yeah, that's a great idea. Now, the problem with taking it back, then taking that back to the Xbox site, a site that's been around for like 3 or 4 years, that's set in its ways, then a lot of people don't like change, especially on the internet. So I guess, I mean, people still can do that. We've got no rules in place for those kind of things. I mean, it's just whatever works. So if people wanted to do that and people wanted to set that up, then we wouldn't have a problem with that. But for people that have been making guides on the Xbox site for like 7 or 8 years, they're not going to change halfway through, because it was hard enough to get the roadmaps in originally. But obviously, roadmaps were a fairly new thing for us. They weren't around when we started doing guides originally. So it's just getting people used to what's good for them, what's good for the community. And when you've been doing something for so long, it's hard to then change your ways to then do something completely different. But if people wanted to start doing that on the forums, I would not have a problem with that. And I don't think the mods or Creech or anyone would either. Especially, I don't think the community would, because like you say, it's all subjective. So my 10 could be a 1 to you, and a 1 to you could be a 10 to me kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
But that's almost the problem with achievements though, right? Because a lot of them, there's either your skill-based ones or your time-consuming ones. How do you rate a list that will take you 500 hours, but it's really easy? Would you say that's 5? Would you say that's a 10? Now, on the other hand, how would you rate a list that will only take you 5 hours, but you need an incredible amount of skill? Is that a 1? Is that a 10? I mean, like you say, subjectivity, and just boiling down to what it is in terms of difficulty and how you do a scale. That's harder than it actually seems.
I'm gonna have to be a pioneer and just start making guides with the poll for difficulty.
I think you should. I think you should. Because, I mean, that's how it starts, right? All it takes is one person to do it, and then somebody else is like, oh, wow, that's a really good idea. And then they've done it. And then the next thing you know, 3-4 months down the line, everyone's doing it, and you started a new trend.
Yeah, that was the with the roadmaps. That kind of was like just. Was that like an initiative you guys started, or was it more like just someone on the forums? I forget.
That was just someone on the forums. I want to say, I'm going to say Tarek Egypt. Like,
Did you hire that guy?
That's a name that rings a bell. You know what? I'm going to Google it while I'm speaking to you.
Yeah, no, I've heard of him.
But I'm fairly sure it was his idea. He was like, why don't we do this? And then we were like, okay, that's great. And he started to do them and all his guides. And then other people were like, oh, this is really good. And then after a while, every guide had a roadmap. So then we were like, you know what? We're going to bring those onto the front page now so that people have got the roadmaps as well. And that's how we've approached a lot of our design. That if something, because we like to let the community vote. So, but not in terms of actual votes, but if they're doing something that they like and everybody likes it, then we'll implement it on the site.
Mm-hmm. Now I remember when those roadmaps first started coming on, it was kind of made it a lot harder for the achievement guides that didn't have roadmaps. Like, ah, where's my quick little snapshot of difficulty and time and glitched achievements and all that?
Yeah, we actually went back and put a load into the old ones.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people that did that. Everybody kind of rallied together. And there must have been 300 guides that needed roadmaps. And everybody's like, yeah, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do that. And that's what I love about the community, that everybody kind of just pulls together, but everybody's pulling in the same direction. So everybody's trying to help each other out. And I think that's why it's become so successful, and that people always come to the community now, because a lot of the guides these days as well, they're not just done by one person, they're done by a committee almost. So somebody will start the guide and then they'll take feedback from the community, like, oh, this way, I found this way, it's better to get this achievement this way. And they're like, oh, brilliant. So it almost creates the best kind of guides then, because hundreds of people writing one guide is always going to be better than one person writing a guide, because they have the power of hours basically, and 100 people can put more hours into a game than one person can.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, speaking of when you were saying earlier about you guys focus on what you're doing versus what other sites are doing.
Yeah,
I noticed one thing. You guys focus a lot on the MCM London Comic Con, which I swear no other site covers that. That I see
yeah,
is that you guys are always coming in super heavy and.
yeah. That's basically because I think it's about 3 years ago, or at least 2.5 years ago, we actually became a partner with them. They were looking for somebody to create content on the stage. And at the time for us, it was like, oh, this is great brand awareness. GameSpot actually used to run the stage before us. And we stepped in and took it off their hands. I don't know what happened, but basically it was given to us, and we saw it as an opportunity to, one, get some exposure, because the London Comic Con is absolutely huge. The one in October, there were 115,000 people through the door over the weekend. Now, when you compare that to San Diego gets, I think it's 135,000. So there's only like 20,000 in it. So
Oh
we
wow.
saw, yeah, so it's huge, and the amount of people there is ridiculous. So we saw it as not just a chance for exposure, but a chance that we could get some great, like, exclusive content for the site. So we get gameplay demos, we get to show off games before they're launched, we get to do fun stuff with the community. So yeah, it's they're kind of, we're almost partners with them. They give us the stage and they give us their brand, and we can attract people onto our stage then. So we've had loads of demos from Ubisoft Montreal. We've had, like, Stephen Masters came over to show off Assassin's Creed, I want to say 3. And then we've had people come over and show off Splinter Cell Conviction. We've had people come over and show off things like Wasteland. We had Brian Fargo over. So it was good for us, basically just to get more exposure, because our name is all over the MCM Comic Con in terms of games. So effectively, for us, it was exposure and content. So it's something that I think has been worthwhile, and it's something that we enjoy, and it's something that helps make us seem like more of a professional entity, that we have these ties with these big events. So obviously Eurogamer in the UK had their expo. For us, this is almost our alternative, that we get to put on a stage show with content that we want to see, and I feel that it's content that people that use our site want to see, because I consider myself a user of the site still, and I read our news. I don't write that much of it these days. I used to write it all the time, and then we got Rich on board. So I treat our site like I'm writing and producing content for me, because originally I was just a consumer. I was just a member on the forums and stuff. So that's how I kind of treat it. But yeah, it's just something that I thought would help us, and it's done great things for us. Because of that, we've got a lot more access to games pre-release. We've got achievement lists out of it. Things like when we created the Grid 2 achievement list with Codemasters, I mean, all this kind of stuff came around because our standing in the industry, and not just our traffic, but our community and the things that we do outside of our sites, things like the events and stuff like that. So yeah, we do cover it, and usually it's like every 6 months. So every May and every October, there'll just be an entire weekend dedicated to the MCM London Comic Con.
Yeah, and there's
Well,
there's always
I
tons of
guess,
interviews on there too, which I like.
yeah. I guess I
Yeah,
would segue into this question since you mentioned it. How long did it take you or the site to be, I guess, recognized by Microsoft and other publishers for you to be able to get like review copies and invited to, like E3 or Gamescom, where like you're like part of like, the press outlet, I guess. Did that
yeah.
take a lot of like back and forth, or is it pretty much like, yo, we're like, look at all the hits we get and all the traffic, like we're a pretty big website, like I think it's in your best interest to let us do this,
It took us a really long time, and especially in this day and age, it's not just a case of traffic. It's more a case of a bit of everything. It's traffic, how you run, how professional you are, because a lot of publishers, they see that sites can get big overnight, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be good for their brand, because there's a lot of people that can create a website but then don't come across as like a professional entity in terms of it, which is things like why we got Rich on board to do some like proper news for us. Rich has got background. He's got a degree in writing, and I think it's film studies or something like that. But he's been a creative writer for years. So we tried to create this company around these websites. So when I came out of university, we had these two big websites and there was a load of traffic. But that didn't really mean a lot to publishers, because we'd go with the figures and then they'll be like, oh, yeah, great, yeah. It probably took, from the first time we reached out, probably a couple of years of just working with them to say, look, we're not a Mickey Mouse operation here. We're in it for the long haul. We want to be professional. We are professional. This is what we do. So yeah, it did take a long time, even after we first established contact. But things like E3 and Gamescom, they're the good things because you only really need traffic to get in. They don't really look at quality of content, because at the end of the day, you're giving them exposure in. I think at the time when we first went to our first Gamescom, I think we had 2 sites and we had about 1 million uniques, which for them is huge, and for the games industry is fairly huge. But 1 million uniques for a publisher, it's like, okay, yeah, that's not great. We work with GameSpot, they get 32 million and stuff like that. So it took us a while before we actually managed to break down that barrier and prove to them that we were serious, that we were in it for the long haul. That because there's a lot of people in the industry that will set up sites that will get a lot of traffic, but don't like to play by the rules, and things like breaking embargoes and things like that. So there are big trust issues in the games industry, I would say, at times. Especially early on, before you have a relationship with publishers and you know the people and they know you and they know your sites. So yeah, it can take a while to break down that barrier. I mean, it took us 3 years before we actually became a business, and then it probably took us another 18 months on top of that before we were taken truly seriously.
So, which event do you like better, E3 or Gamescom?
Okay,
If you've been to both.
Oh yeah, I've been to all of them. I've been to TGS as well. I've been to PAX a lot of times. But in terms of the big two, which are obviously E3 and Gamescom, you know what? I'm going to say Gamescom. I prefer that. I love E3 to pieces, and it's great. But I've always said that E3 is better experienced at home than it is actually out in LA covering it. Because at home you get to watch all the shows, you get to see all the content at the show, and you get to hear all the news and stuff like that. But when I'm at E3, especially the first day, the press conference day, I will spend all day I will go to a press conference, and then I will get on a bus to go to another press conference. Then I'll get on a bus to go to another press conference. Then I'll get on a bus to go to another press conference, and then I'll go home. So I don't get a chance to really absorb it all, and anything that happens in between the press conferences, I don't get a chance to see. So it's a little bit manic. And then when you get to actually E3, when the actual doors open on the Tuesday to the Thursday, it's so loud in there. It's so busy in there. It's manic, and everybody's competing against each other for sound. So like Activision is playing their Call of Duty trailer and they're turning it up to 12. And then Ubisoft are like, hold on a minute. We want our Assassin's Creed trailer to attract the crowd. So they'll turn it up to 13, and then it'll go back and forth until you're effectively deaf come the end of the show. Gamescom, on the other hand, though, it's a lot more laid back. All the big announcements at E3 have come, so you tend to only get a few big announcements. But in terms of the show, it's actually split. So and it's bigger as well. So there's 2 halls at E3. At Gamescom, there's about 6 or 7. And 2 of those are dedicated entirely just to publishers. It's called the Business Center. So we can go in and see our games, and it's not busy. It's quite quiet. It's air-conned. So we can do our interviews. We can see the games. I don't want to say in comfort, but a lot more comfortable than we can at E3. And plus, for E3, I have to travel 9 hours to get from the UK to LA. Gamescom, only 45 minutes plane. So there is that. Because obviously, traveling from the UK as well, we have to suffer with the jet lag, which isn't fun.
Do you always go? Or do you sometimes like, I've had enough, you go, send in somebody else?
I've done E3 now for the last 6 years, I want to say. I missed Gamescom this year, but only because one of my good friends was getting married on that day. I told her, if you get married, just don't get married in this week. So what did she do? She decided to get married in that week. So unfortunately, I had to miss Gamescom this year. But before that, I'd done the previous 7 Gamescoms. That was the first show I ever did, Gamescom, before it moved from Leipzig to Cologne. Now, Leipzig was it was horrible. It's a small little town in Germany. It's not built up for big trade shows like that. So when the games industry roll into town, I'm not sure they were ready for what happened after that. Because obviously there's loads of people there, like consumers, just to see the games and play the games. There's hundreds of, probably thousands of journalists. There's probably hundreds of thousands of publishers and developers there. So this tiny little town was just inundated with a ridiculous amount of people. So Cologne's a lot better suited, and Cologne's a beautiful city as well. So yeah, I've done it for a long time. I probably still will do it for a few more years to come. I mean, I'm not burnt out on it all. They are, for us, they're tiring because we'll start early and we'll just be sat in a room all day, and then we'll see a game for 30 minutes, and then we got 5 minutes to get to the next game on the other side of the LA Convention Center, or whether it's the Kölner Messe in Cologne. So they're quite manic, but they're still enjoyable, and I still enjoy being out there doing it. So for now, I think I'm good, but I think probably 10 years of doing it, that might be when I hit my limit. But I'm all right at the moment, and I'm still plugging away.
Yeah, and none of us have gone to any of the big events like E3 or Gamescom or anything, but it always did seem like Gamescom would be the place to go if you just wanted to play the games, just to get in line. The lines aren't too big, not as many people. I've always heard that it takes hours to just play one 5-minute demo at E3.
Yeah, and the good thing with Gamescom is because you'll notice that E3, all the big announcements happen in the press conferences, but that doesn't mean that you're going to see all the games behind closed doors. There's a lot of games that you don't actually see, so they'll get announced on the stage, and then that's it then. So when you go and see the stuff on the show floor, it's not as good as what you were seeing at the press conference, because obviously things like when Halo 5 was announced, was Halo 5 there to be seen? No. I mean, it took 18 months before we saw Halo 5 eventually. But come to Gamescom, all the big announcements that you saw at E3 have finally got to a point in their development cycle where you can actually see them and play them. So you tend to get a lot of the better games. and in better condition as well. So if you see a game at E3, 3 months down the line, it can look a lot better at Gamescom just because they've obviously pushed out the game early just so that the public can see it, the press can see it, and they're just trying to get as much coverage as possible.
Yeah.
So and you say the queues at Gamescom, but actually Gamescom is the busiest show because it's actually open to the public. So E3 isn't. You have to be an industry person, whatever that means. I think it's like developer, publisher, media, or somebody connected to the industry. And then you have to get an invite or you have to pay for a ticket. But at Gamescom, if you're if you're just a gamer, you can actually go and play. So Gamescom actually tends to be busier. I don't know the stats, but it's easily the biggest games show in the world, I'm going to say.
Oh wow.
Even bigger than TGS? I always heard TGS was the biggest.
Yeah, so TGS is actually quite small. Like, I went to TGS.
Really?
Yeah, I went to TGS a couple of years ago. It gets a lot of people in, but the actual show is smaller. Here you go. I've just actually Googled the stats while I was there. Gamescom got 335,000 through the doors this year. I'm fairly sure E3 only gets about 70,000. And I'm just going to subtly Google TGS's stats while I delay you. But yeah, I think TGS is probably between 50 and 70,000. Don't quote me on that. I wasn't able to get a quick Google search out of it. But yeah, Tokyo is busy though, and it's a smaller venue. So it does seem busier. But when you look at Gamescom, because Gamescom is absolutely huge, like it probably takes you 20, 25 minutes to walk from the one end of the show to the other, and that's without going through the actual halls that come off from the walkway. So yeah, actually TGS is big, 250,000, but it's still like 80,000 short on Gamescom.
I wonder if that's gone down some, because gaming doesn't seem to be as big in Japan as it used to be. Because I swear there was a time.
Some mobile
maybe
phone
this was
games now,
years ago.
DOA.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to, if I can, switch gears 1 second. I wanted to go back to something. Well, first of all, let me ask you this, without going too specific. Which site is bigger, the PlayStation one or the Xbox one?
You know what? At the moment, it's just the Xbox site, but the PlayStation site it's clawing its way back. So there was a period in the middle of the year around E3 where it was going back and forth. So obviously the PS4 has helped the PlayStation site immensely, and the Xbox One's slow start didn't really help the PlayStation site. But yeah, I would say at the moment, just by a whisker, it's the Xbox site. I think the Xbox site's at about 1.6 at this present moment in time, and the PlayStation is about 1.55, and that's million uniques a month. So
Oh, that's close. Well, the
yeah.
reason I brought this up was because I wanted to ask, since you run a gaming site, you're sort of at the mercy of how these things do. Were you really nervous a year and a half ago with all the bad press the one was getting? Because that would obviously affect your site if it went really bad.
Yeah, so we looked at it and we were discussing it, but I came from a different mindset. I was like, whatever happens to the one, it won't really affect anything on our sites because we're still Xbox 360 achievements. Well, obviously, we're Xbox achievements now, but we're still covering the Xbox 360. So just because the Xbox One comes out doesn't mean it's going to take away from the Xbox 360 audience. It just means that some of the gamers are going to jump across while others stay. And we always thought that if the case was that people were going to leave Xbox behind, that they would go to PlayStation. And because of the type of gamers that we attract, people that like to play games and like to be rewarded and get some kind of just rewards from just playing games. And obviously it's the mindset of going for achievements then transfers across to PlayStation. So we kind of thought that if people were going to jump ship from Xbox and go to PlayStation, that they would just start afresh with trophies. So we didn't really panic all too much, but we weren't even concerned. I would just say we were aware of it, if that makes sense.
No, obviously they had good news this month, so that must be encouraging. That
Yeah.
they're doing really well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Works out great for you.
Yeah, brilliant for us. And I think the good thing is, like industry-wise, that there was a lot of talk before this generation about whether, oh man, is gaming dying? I know these happens every like 7 years.
Yeah, I swear
Oh,
it's every year that comes out. Really
yeah,
annoying.
but like everyone's like, oh my god, nobody's going to spend £400 on a console. No one's going to spend £450 on a console. Actually, this was the best console launch we've ever had. So it just shows you that the demand is still there.
Did you ever
Oh,
think
yeah.
about making a Wii U website for stuff like that?
So a long time ago, I don't know whether we still own them. We actually had the domains for Steam achievements, and I want to call them accomplishments because that's what was rumored they were going to be called. So we were ready to roll them out as soon as they got announced. So the thing with the trophies, we created the trophy website in, oh god, it was a matter of probably days. Like it came out of nowhere that the trophies were being added, and then it was like, oh shit, we better create a website. We were always prepared for it. We had the domains and everything, but yeah. So it was the same with the Wii U and Steam. Like Steam obviously did achievements, but there's no unifying platform there, and that's what we wanted to stick to, platforms that had a unifying platform, if that makes sense. Like obviously the achievements, there's rules and regulations behind them. If in Steam there are no rules and there is no score, there is nothing that brings everything together. So if Steam was to do something like that, then we'd definitely set up a Steam site, a PC site. If Nintendo was ever going to do anything like that with the Wii, we'd definitely do the same there. But until that happens, no plans to do anything along those lines. But we're always prepared to do these things because obviously people know that our product now, and our products obviously worked on the Xbox and it worked on the PlayStation, so it works across every single platform. So we are ready to do it, but I'm fairly sure it's never going to happen.
No, WiiUaccomplishments.org.
I think we own WiiUaccomplishments.com. We did anyway, but to be fair, we own probably 1,000 URLs. Just things like for the future, things like what we might want to do. And every so often we'll make an executive decision. You're like, you know what? We're never going to use this. Let's let that one die. I think Wii U accomplishments might have been one of those that we let die.
Slip through your fingers, God.
Well, you say that, but I wouldn't really through our fingers because, like, obviously we get an email every time. Do you want to, like? I think we sign them up for a year, or at least 2 years at a time. So it's like, do you want to renew? It's like, you know what? We're okay. We're okay.
Well, and speaking of URLs too, I know all of us are still kind of hooked on calling it X360A, when the actual URL now is
Yeah.
xboxachievements.org.com. I think
I'm trying to push the XBA
yeah.
brand, but obviously we spent 7 years, 8 years making the X360A brand. And the funny thing is that when we set the X360A brand up, we had the conversation. I was like, this isn't going to last forever. And we're like, yeah, but, it works. Everybody's calling it us, so let's just go with it. And I was like, okay, we'll roll with it. And then when we have to change it, we'll have to just roll with those punches as well and just do it on the fly. But yeah, I still find myself calling it X360A. So I can
your
understand.
gamer tag still has X360A at the end.
Exactly right. I noticed a few people have changed to XBA, but yeah, I haven't changed yet. But I really need to. It's been over a year, so yeah, I think we actually launched it. I think it was December the 15th last year, or around then.
Yeah, the day the system came out. Oh wait, December. Oh, all right. So a month after.
Well, that's not bad.
So since you run the website and you get all the perks, and I notice Lee usually writes most of the reviews for the website, right?
Which Lee?
I don't know. I remember
Bradley Lee, I believe it is.
Bradley, I think.
say-
Or...
The main reviewers are myself, Lee Bradley, who's our features guy, Rich Walker, who is our news guy for the most part, but obviously he does reviews as well. Lee Abrahams as well. Obviously, you guys must know Lee, Jack and Ape.
Yeah, Jackknife. Yeah.
Yeah, so those are that's the main kind of editorial core in terms of reviews and such. Obviously, sometimes we'll get freelancers in for subjects that we have no idea about, but that's very rare.
So when like, since you get to like pick and choose since you run it, is there like, so it's like, all right, well, here's Avatar 2. All right, well, you're doing this. I can't be bothered with this. And then here's Dragon Age Inquisition. This is mine, guys. I'm doing this one. Do you kind of do it? Because I think you did the Dragon Age Inquisition review, right?
Yeah, there is a reason. So everybody's kind of got a speciality, and I tend to stick franchises with certain people who are like Rich is our Assassin's Creed guy because he's played every single Assassin's Creed. So he gets all the Assassin's Creed games. Lee Bradley gets our Far Cry because he's played all the Far Cry games. I tend to get a lot of the RPG stuff because that is my go-to genre, and I've played all the BioWare stuff. I didn't review Dragon Age 2. Rich did that, but that's only because I was away. I think I was at GDC or something. So yeah, it doesn't tend to work like that because otherwise I would have reviewed GTA 4 and 5. Um, actually, I did review GTA 4, but it was well after launch. But yeah, Rich got GTA 5, so it just like the guys. I tend to only come in and review when it's genres that the guys aren't comfortable with or I'm more comfortable with. And I only tend to come in as well when it's really busy. So if we've got like 6 games to review, that's when I'll kind of come out of retirement, write a review. And then when that's done, so the perfect example is from September to the end of November. That's basically what I do. I step on board and help with the workload. It used to be a case of, oh, yeah, this is coming out. I'm going to do it. But then as we started to get bigger, it was more of a case that I should really be doing stuff that's trying to grow the site, grow the features on the site, and extend its reach. So yeah, I used to do that. Unfortunately, I don't anymore. But I still play the games eventually.
Yeah, especially Dragon Age. I know you've been playing that for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I've sunk a serious amount of hours into Dragon Age. So we've been doing a lot of streaming recently. This is one of our new initiatives because
Hmm.
obviously video is the future. So we've actually started about 5-6 weeks ago. We started a Dragon Age stream where the community decides, like as a vote, what decisions in terms of the major decisions in the game we make. So that's about 15 hours in. I've got a playthrough that's about 130 hours in. So I put about 145 hours into the game. So, and I've still
So
not even
is it
all
safe
this.
to say Dragon Age is your game of the year then? I know you probably going to do your own game of the year thing, but
You know what? This year's been a really weird year. I found there's been a lot of really great games, but nothing truly amazing. Like
Yeah.
obviously, so I love Sunset Overdrive. Alien Isolation was great. Dragon Age was great. I didn't give Dragon Age a 9 in the end. There were too many bugs in it for me and some interesting design choices. So I would say no, Dragon Age isn't my game of the year, but it's up there. I just think it could have done with a bit of extra, like probably another couple of months for some more polish. The it's a classic Bioware game where there's some really awkward bugs in it at times. But I didn't really hold it against it that much because I still love it and I would recommend that anybody play it. In terms of my game of the year at the moment, I genuinely have no idea. We sat down in the office last week and started going through it, and I think we've got probably 10 games that could win it, but we're not decided on any of them. There's not that one game that stands out.
Yeah, we've all felt the same way too. We've talked about our game of the years, and there's not. I mean, for me personally, I'd probably pick Shadow of Mordor, but even I don't think Shadow of Mordor is necessarily game of the year quality. You know what I mean? It's a really good game, but
Absolutely.
doesn't really seem like it should win that type of an award.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird year because yeah, in years gone by, like last year GTA 5 won it. The year before, I think Bioshock Infinite won it maybe, and then the year before that, Skyrim won it. So these are games that are leading the way. This year, whatever wins it is just going to be a game that's kind of just there.
It's like, yeah,
It's,
whatever. This game will get have it.
Yeah,
Well, yeah,
it's
we always said this was the most 7 out of 10 year I've ever seen.
Maybe
yeah,
if you guys had a Wii U site, it'd be Bayonetta 2.
yeah. Or Mario Kart was obviously very popular this year as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
But obviously we don't, so that makes it easier for us. I say easier, harder, but that's another game that's not in the mix. Yeah, I think we've got like at least 7 games in the running, and we just sat around the other day and just looked at each other and we were like, genuinely no idea what to do this year. So I think we're just going to probably draw lots, put everybody together. We'll get like a short list of like 7, and then get everybody to rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and whoever gets the least amount of points wins. If that makes sense.
A total sense to me. Yeah.
Well, I can't think of any other way to do it this year because there are so many games that are great games, don't get me wrong, but not kind of genre defining games.
Yeah.
How do you feel like about like the difference like retail versus indie? Because I know there's a large contingent of people out there, gamers. I think we might even have one in here who consider indie games just whatever. Like they ain't worth like, anything. They can't be considered on the same breath as retail games. You know?
So, yeah, out the 3 editorial guys, myself, Rich, and Lee, you've definitely got 3 completely different opinions. Lee, Mr. Bradley, he loves the indie game stuff. He loves that market. He loves all those kind of games. Rich just loves games. I'm all about the AAA games. I'm all about the big, expensive experiences. Those are the kind of games I play. I couldn't care
Damn right.
about games like
Amen.
Gone Home and stuff like that. Genuinely, really couldn't care. But that's just me, and I know there's an audience for them. But personally, I'm all about your Gears of Wars, your Halos, your Uncharted's, your Mass Effects, your Dragon Ages. That's my games. Those are the games that I want to get immersed in. I just don't find that I can get immersed in Thomas Was Alone and things like that.
Oh man, Thomas was alone. That game was awesome.
But do you know what I mean? Like the pixel art, it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
for me personally. So I have nothing against them, and I think that we need both just to appeal to as many gamers as possible. Which is why I feel that we need mobile games as well, because it's like they're gateway drugs effectively, right? If you play a small game, then you might play an iPad game, and then you might pick up a controller and then love it. You might buy a console, and then you've turned somebody from not liking games into loving games. So I'm as long as it's a game that people will play, then it needs to exist. But personally, I'm all about amazing scores written by Hans Zimmer and realistic, well, not even photorealistic graphics, but interesting art styles and big budgets. So that's me personally.
Hmm. So I guess maybe
I'm
this
a Michael
question
Bay
is
gamer.
my next question would have been how do you feel about the Microsoft's indie policy, the parity clause that is, because of it we're not getting as many indie games as PlayStation, but it seems like since you don't really care for them, it's not that big of a thing for you.
Well, no, because I still care about the platform and the message that it sends, obviously, because I have an Xbox site, that I have a vested interest in both the Xbox and the PlayStation doing it right. I can see both. I can see their argument. Their argument is that they don't want second best, right? They want a platform so that they don't want a game that's been out on the PC 6 years ago. They don't want a game that's been out on the PlayStation 6 months ago or whatever. They want to create new experiences. So I can see what they're saying. But for me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Just the best thing for the consumer right now is just choice, right? So if you've got 10 games that have been stopped from being on the Xbox One because of this parity clause, they're just going to go somewhere else and play them. And that's the last thing you want to do as a console manufacturer. So, yeah, I think it's a bad move, but it's one that I can see the business sense in it, because the message they're trying to convey is that, look, we're all about new experiences, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me personally.
Me too. I know DOA would disagree, but I'm with you on that
I
one.
kind of agree with what Webb just said. That I get the business sense. You don't want to be the second-class citizen where every small game developer is like, oh, we'll just put it on PlayStation and then we'll get to Xbox later. And that's what they're avoiding to me. So, I mean, it makes sense from a business standpoint.
Yeah. But I'm also in the camp where I don't really care about indie games, so whatever.
Thomas Was Alone was better than Assassin's Creed Unity this year,
Here
so
we go.
whatever.
Can you really compare them though? That's like
Yes.
saying that steak that you bought round the corner isn't as good as that sausage and egg McMuffin that you bought from McDonald's.
Well, that steak gave me diarrhea, so.
Yeah, well, and it was broken, and glitches in it, and there was bones
Yeah.
everywhere.
I guess I got another one here. So on your front page for your latest news, Devil May Cry Definitive Edition is coming to Xbox One and PS4 as well as Devil May Cry 4.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about this whole generation of remasters? Pretty much taking games from last gen and reselling them to us again this gen because we don't have backwards compatibility. What do you think?
I'm actually on the fence because there's games that I didn't play last gen that are being brought forward to the next gen that I'm like, oh, you know what? I'll get a chance to play these now. They're coming out. But then on the other hand, I'm like, hold on, we need new experiences. We didn't have this when the Xbox 360 came out. There weren't. It was all about new experiences or even old IPs that were being remade, things like Perfect Dark and stuff like that. And so I'm kind of on the fence about it because there are some games that I want to play that I missed last gen. From a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense. They're easy to churn out. They can make the companies money, and I'm like, as long as the consumer's happy, I mean, I think that's all that matters at the end of the day. But as a consumer, like nothing to do with me owning websites and stuff, it's getting a little bit frustrating to not see companies investing their money and their time into new experiences. Things like, yeah, I played Devil May Cry, I played DMC, it was great, it was good. Will I play it again? No. But some people will. And for Capcom at the moment, if it will make them money, which will then fund a proper Resident Evil, then I'm okay with it. But if they're not going to be creating new experiences and this is all it's going to be for the next year or two, then yeah, that's when I won't get behind it. For me, I just want new experiences. And I think we haven't had enough this year. There have been far too many. I mean, the big Halo game this year was meant to be Halo 5, ended up being a remake of, obviously, all 4 of the games, which is great and all, but I want a new experience. I played Halo 2 Anniversary, and as much as I loved it, I wanted to play the Master Chief Collection for the multiplayer, which was completely balked. So,
Yep.
for me personally, I would much prefer to be playing a new experience right now, something I haven't played, a new game, a new franchise, rather than playing one that I have. That said,
So if Skyrim came out, Game of the Year edition for Xbox One, would you play it again? Because I know
No.
you put a lot of time in the last one.
Yeah, I put hundreds of hours into that. And my ultimate favourite franchise of last gen is Mass Effect. And there's rumour of them making next gen ports of that. I still wouldn't buy it. I've had my experience with that game. I played Mass Effect like 1 6 times. I played 2 4 times. And I played 3. I think I played 2 or 3 times. So, I mean, I've had my experiences there. And I've got very fond memories of them. I don't want to be bringing that up. Same with Skyrim. I put a couple of 100 hours into Skyrim, and it was amazing at the time. I don't want to be bringing up those kind of nostalgic thoughts again when I could be having new experiences with new games that I hadn't played. So
Just wait till it comes out in a dead summer and you'll be changing your tune.
yeah, anything that comes out in the summer, I will probably buy because the lull between E3 and September is ridiculous. And anybody complaining that their game doesn't sell in October, November, I have no sympathy for them.
Oh, I
because
hate that argument.
Yeah, it's like if you want to go up against Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, Battlefield, whatever, then you release in November and October, but you lose your right to complain. There's a perfect window between July and August kind of thing, those 2 months where you could release anything and it'd sell millions because people are craving out for new games.
And we're gonna have a test case this upcoming year. Batman comes out in June.
Yeah, well, I mean, test cases. Red Dead, that was April. That was May, right?
Yeah, it was
GTA
May.
4, that was April. There have been big games that have released in June, July, and August, and sold millions and 5 to 10 million. But apparently, that's not enough proof. I just don't understand it.
And it's
But
always Rockstar, I swear, too, because I believe LA Noir came out in May also.
it did, yes, you're correct. But you are right, and I think Rockstar see the value in it. They see, you know what, we're Rockstar. We don't need to worry about Christmas. We're going to sell shitloads of copies anyway, so they'll release whenever they like. Batman will probably sell better in June, July than it would do any other time of the year. Especially is the new Batman film out next year? Or is it the year after?
It's out 2016 March.
2016. So I mean, summer blockbusters in terms of all the superhero stuff that goes on in the summer as well. Having a Batman game out can be nothing but a good thing, and I think they'll benefit from it.
Plus, like
Yeah.
now that Witcher 3 just got delayed and Batman was delayed and all these games are getting delayed, you get that sense of like, really? But then you play Assassin's Creed Unity and Halo Master Chief, and you're like, all right, delay your games, guys, because we at least want it to work when it comes out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would much rather play a game that works 3 months later than it should have been out than play one that's broken like Assassin's Creed Unity.
Yeah, we all had great time playing Assassin's Creed Unity, trying to play that co-op.
Ugh.
Yeah, we
Ugh.
did a live stream with it, and I reckon for the 3 hour live stream we did, there was probably an hour's worth of glitches that we could have edited together. Things like people getting stuck in the scenery, people just getting glitched across the map. It was a complete mess, which is a shame because I actually enjoyed what I played, but then with all the frustration, it was like, you know what, I'm gonna wait till they patch this, and apparently it's still just as bad. I'm not able to confirm that myself, but
Yeah,
I
we
know,
waited about 3 weeks before we played the co-op, and we still had plenty of issues.
oh god.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a shame. I'd much rather wait till summer because even now, even October and November this year, they were far too crowded. If you just push one of them games back to January, February, March, or I know you can't push them back too much, but it just makes complete sense to me because you're not competing against the Titans like Call of Duty, like GTA 5 this year as well. So I just think that anybody that goes up against them, especially new IPs, that they're asking for failure.
What are
Yeah,
your
no, I
feelings
completely
on
agree.
online only stuff like Destiny and the Crew?
Actually,
Do you like more games like that, or
yeah, I'm very much a single player for the most part. I like to play on my own. I do enjoy games like Destiny and the Crew and things like that. And so but personally, I'm all about single player experiences. I'm all about story experiences. So when it comes to story, the Crew had a better story than Destiny, which says a lot. Um, I enjoyed my time with the Crew, but I spent most of the time racing alone. So it's nice that the option is there that if I want a game on my own, I'll game on my own because a lot of the time I work really awkward hours. So I won't be getting home till 9 o'clock at night. And then by the time I've eaten and showered and stuff, it's 10 o'clock. And a lot of my friends being in the UK are going to bed, or if they're in the US, they're still at work or something like that. So I game at really odd hours and finding people to game with, I actually have to schedule using our site actually for the most part. So I schedule events and stuff like that to play with friends. I'm a single player gamer for the most part, so I don't mind those experiences. I think they need to exist. But for me personally, I'd much rather sit down and play Dragon Age for 100 hours than play Destiny for 100 hours.
Yeah, I think DOA would agree with you on that. Probably not.
Yeah, well, despite all the time I've spent in Destiny, yeah, I'm all about no multiplayer.
yeah, Webb? He's put 700 hours into Destiny. Yeah,
What?
Quiet you. Quiet you.
700 hours into Destiny.
Well,
And
How?
since you've brought this up, do you think they're going to add achievements or not? You're an achievement site.
No, no, no. And I don't know why. It's the most ridiculous decision I've heard in the last 6 months. Like,
Yeah, I thought it was bizarre. That's the only reason I'm still playing is because I feel like they probably will add achievements. They're just pulling a Titanfall here, and they're going to be like a month late.
well, it's a weird choice, and you would have thought that they would have been ready, considering they had to cut most of the game. So most of the game was probably ready in September. But I don't know. It's a really bizarre decision. That DLC without achievements in this day and age it's ludicrous, if you ask me.
Well, especially for that type of game. I mean, this isn't exactly a weapons pack. I mean, this is a pretty substantial expansion.
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
no achievements. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, I don't understand it. And like, admittedly, I sometimes skip over DLC if there's no achievements in them. So the fact that I was going to skip over Destiny anyway, the DLC, that decision has been made for me now by Bungie not putting achievements in.
Yeah, now I'm the same way. I would have gotten
I love
Bungie
it. Let them
with
have it.
anyway. You're just like, you're an achievement site, please. Tell me the
Yeah,
achievements.
make a case. Call Bungie. Put in the calls.
If Bungie phoned me up and said, look, we can't be bothered to put achievements in, but if you want to make them free of charge, let us know. I would literally sit down and write achievements in my own free time for nothing. And I would say, look, put these in the game. But obviously that's never going to happen. But I mean, that's how much that it bothers me in a way that it doesn't have them, because it's an incentive for people to go back. And it just makes no logical sense that you don't have them in for new, like you say, a massive expansion pack. Well, I say massive. It's probably a quarter the size of the game, but that wasn't very big.
Well, I mean, compared to most DLC, though, it's pretty big. I mean, it's
Yeah,
multiplayer maps, single-player missions, a new raid. I mean, that's quite a lot compared to like Call of Duty, where it's
yeah,
just like here's a few maps.
it was the same price as a Call of Duty map pack as well, wasn't it? Effectively,
It might be a little
More
bit more. I think
expensive.
it's
It's
20.
$20.
Yeah.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
20, not 15, right?
It's like I
Yeah.
said, I think it's because Bungie hates achievements. They despise them.
Which is ridiculous because they do some decent lists, and over the years they've done some really solid lists.
Well, they are one
Yeah,
of
but
the
their multiplayer
few,
lists have been terrible, though.
and they are one of the
Ugh.
few developers that really monitor people trying to boost and banning people for boosting on the old Halo games.
Yeah, but isn't that their fault? Effectively,
Yep, it
because
is.
they
Yeah, yeah.
put those achievements in. So if you're going to put those achievements in, people are going to go after them, and people are going to go after them in the shortest route possible.
Yep.
Just
So do
blame
you
them.
Well,
have
especially. Go
do
ahead.
you have a lot of like direct conversation with Microsoft regarding like achievements? Did they come to you like when they were redoing the achievement stuff for the one and ask for your guys' opinions or help or anything like that? Or is it kind of just like we just cover this stuff? We have like kind of like no direct input with Microsoft.
No, we don't really have that much direct input. Obviously, we have conversations with Microsoft and stuff like that. But no, I would say we effectively have zero input in terms of achievements. But that wouldn't surprise me that I know they read our stuff and our editorials on achievements and stuff like that, and they know of our hate for various types of achievements. So indirectly we might, but not directly.
Yeah, so stop trying to blame him for all the glitch achievements on Xbox One, man.
We get people still think we're Microsoft, and it's like I get so many emails, probably I don't know, 10, 15 a month, blaming us for everything that goes wrong in gaming in terms of achievements. And I'm like, hold on a minute, hold on, we're completely independent. And they're like, oh, sorry, bye. It's like, okay, thanks for that.
So do you find it weird, like, Microsoft came out this gen was like, hey, the achievement rules, they're broken wide open. Anybody, you could just add achievements all the time. Do you find it weird that like none of these developers have like really like
Taking
accepted
advantage of
that?
it.
Like
Yeah.
you don't see a developer saying, hey, every Friday we're gonna have 5 new achievements out. Like for our game, like every Friday, every month. It just seems like it's last gen again, where it's just like achievements come with the DLC that you have to pay for, and there's like just one game out of the blue that just gets free achievements. I thought these developers would like, do more with it essentially.
So I don't know this is fact, and this might be complete bollocks, but fairly sure I remember hearing somewhere that every time you submit something to Microsoft, you have to make a payment for it to go through certification. So developers are probably looking at that and saying it's not worth it. So I think every time you submit a patch, you have to pay a hefty, it's like a 5-figure amount just to submit the patch for certification to get it put into the game. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's why you're not seeing more people do once a week, because it costs them a fortune.
I know that was the case with 360, but I could have sworn that they got rid of that for the Xbox One. That patches are free now.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm wrong, but
I remember reading something about it, but I'm not sure whether that is in place yet. A lot of the stuff was, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to do this, as opposed to we've done this.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I would have to find that out actually, because that is an interesting thing. Because yeah, if it was free, you'd be like, hold on, I want to keep people engaged. I want to be releasing as much as like in terms of achievements and stuff as well, as much as possible throughout the year. Because then people will be like, oh, this new achievement's out this week. I'm going to go and get this, and then they'll play again, and you get people invested in your product. Then, right?
Yeah.
hmm
Because it just seems like it's just last gen again. It's like achievements come with paid DLC and that's it. It's like we've been down that road before, you know?
Yeah,
There's like nothing new about it. And I mean, I guess I should ask you your opinion. What do you think of the challenges
I
in
think
air
it's a load of
quotes?
bollocks, to be honest.
Yep.
Yep, pretty much.
So,
Get
and
rid of them.
and the funny thing is that I've not spoke to one person that thinks they're a good idea. So I just don't. I think this is part of the problem with uh, the Xbox One originally, before Phil Spencer came in. I think their direction was completely wrong, and I think they're paying the price for it now because they're basically having. Obviously, everyone's been calling it the Microsoft 180, and
hmm
that's completely fair. And I think the stuff that they put in place that now they're like, oh shit, this actually isn't a really good idea. But because it's already out there, it's I would say it's going to be pretty hard for them to change it now that it's already in place. But I think eventually what you'll just see is you'll see developers and publishers just ignoring challenges. So they exist, but they don't, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
hmm
But yeah, they're complete bollocks. And they fucking make my life harder on the website because they're not worth game score, but they are achievements. And it's like, are you just overcomplicating things now? Just do what Sony does and just take the system from last gen, bring it across to this gen. It works. And they actually improved their system, whereas Microsoft almost watered it down a little bit and made it worse.
Oh yeah.
Can I
I
ask you
agree with
about a
that.
rumor that I had heard?
Okay.
Um, is it true that Microsoft approached you about an app first and you turned them down?
So I can't comment on certain things like that
Okay.
because of certain paperwork that I might have signed with a certain company that says I can't speak about certain things. Um, but yeah, I will say that there is stuff in the pipeline that is hugely exciting, stuff we wanted to be doing for many years but haven't been able to. There are talks ongoing with that. I don't know where they'll end up and I don't know how long it'll be, but we are in discussions with people about doing really cool stuff that might or might not be tied directly to that last question.
That
Uh,
was the greatest answer ever.
It was an answer that wasn't an answer, but I hope you're getting what I'm getting at
Yeah, yeah.
without me explicitly saying it.
DOA,
Okay,
ask the
no, no,
question.
no.
Ask the
Yeah.
question about Pan. See if he
Oh, do you
remembers.
remember Pandora? She's a
Yeah,
friend of ours,
I don't know,
and
trust it.
she thought you wouldn't remember her
Why?
because she told us a story about how you actually gave her gamer tag.
Oh God, it was a long time ago. Yeah, yeah, I remember Pandora.
Yeah,
Um,
she's a friend of ours. She's actually been on the podcast a couple times even, and we were talking to her about you a few days ago. She was like, "Yeah, he gave me this gamer tag. It was his idea, the
yeah,
Pandora's box or something, and it got whittled
that's it.
down to Pandora."
That's it. What's in Pandora's box? Yeah, there's she was Pandora's around. I assume she's still around. If you guys still game with her.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We were playing Assassin's Creed with her. She was our fourth co-op person.
Well,
Oh,
yeah, I know.
nice.
Back in the day, I know she was big on, the forums on X368. I'm not sure if she was a mod or anything, but
She might have been it for one time.
I think she might have been.
Yeah, we've had thousands of mods though, so uh, forgive if she's listening. I apologize if you were and I forgot.
Oh, she'll listen. She listens every week.
Hey Pandora, Christine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
See, great memory. But yeah, that was wow, that must have been about 5 years ago when Pandora was like when she got a gamer tag. I can't remember an old one, but yeah, there's loads of members that I still remember. Then I see them on the forums. I'm like, oh wow, I thought they'd left, which is great. And even like some of the old school guys like Graphic, Legion, Crash. Obviously, they've all moved across to PlayStation now, but I still see them playing online, going after trophies and stuff. So it's good to see that the old crew from around like 2008 to 2010 are still knocking around playing video games. That's always a good sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, we argued because we said why wouldn't he remember? Of course he'll remember. She's like, no, he won't. So we had to ask you about it.
Pan's weird. Don't mind her. I know.
I wanted to
Go ahead. No.
Well, I wanted to ask. I should have probably brought this up earlier because I had a perfect segue like an hour ago. But obviously, your main competition is probably TA. I was wondering how you felt about them, or did you not want to comment, or
Well, I think that goes back to what I was saying about achieve 360 points. That like they do what they do and we do what we do. I mean, there's a big enough amount of gamers out there that you don't have to have one of every site. So there's always going to be competition, and I think they do a great job. I genuinely do, but they do their thing and we do our thing, and I think that we have different directions. Obviously, there's the overlap, but they do things differently to what we do. And I think they're going in a different direction to us. But I think that both sites complement one another. But for the most part, I always focus on what we do as opposed to what everyone else does, because I can change what we do. I can't change what everybody else does. So that's the way I kind of approach website design and website kind of management and stuff like that. But I think they do a great job.
Yeah, okay. I was just wondering because we were talking earlier about the wars. Like Rand brought up the war between the two sites earlier, and I would assume they're your main competition as an achievement. Like, I mean, have you even ever met those guys? Like, if you run into them at some of the like London thing or
No,
Gamescom or never
but
met? Okay.
they are based in the UK, I do believe.
Yeah, well, that was why I was asking. I don't know how close together you are, but I didn't know if you ever same circles, you bump into each other, maybe don't like each other, type of things. Just curiosity, the
Yeah,
competition.
I think this is where we differ though, because I've never seen them out, and I know a lot of people from a lot of different sites, and he's not one of them. So whereas our focus is to be not just obviously the achievement list and stuff like that, but obviously Xbox content as a whole. That's where we're going for. So we go to preview events, we go to play games, get interviews and stuff like that. So that's one of our focuses, and it has been for the last 5 years. It's effectively why I exist, because obviously Alex does all the coding and stuff like that, and then I'm there just to flesh out the features and stuff like that in terms of what people can read on the site and what people can kind of watch on the site and things like that. And so I go to a lot of the events, and I've never ever seen him there. Although that said, I wouldn't know what he looked like, so he could just be hiding in a corner. I didn't mean he'd be hiding, but just sat in a corner. So, but yeah, I've never known him to be at an event I've been at, because people talk about this to me all the time, and it's like, oh man, you must be pissed off, and I'm like, why? And they're like, well, because True Achievements, man. I'm like, yeah, and there's also IGN, there's also GameSpot, there's also Kotaku, Polygon, etc., etc. And they're like, yeah, man, but and I'm like, what do you mean, but? And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, awesome. So I think competition is good for everyone. To be fair, it's good for us. It keeps us on his toes. It's good for them because it keeps them on their toes, and it's good for you guys because at the end of the day, the people that are going to benefit out of this the most are the gamers, because we're going to try and grow our platform, and they're going to try and grow their platform, and then people can choose where they go, or they don't even have to choose. I mean, both sites, they can go to both sites. I imagine a lot of people do go to both sites because I see the stats about people coming over here and stuff like that. So I imagine that's what people do. I mean, it's not an
Yeah,
thing,
I
right?
think
It's the internet,
yeah, I think pretty much everyone I know uses both.
which is great for
Yeah.
both of us. So, yay.
Well, yeah. Well, like you said, they're very different though. Like if I want news or forums, I think your site is far superior. Because they're more set up like a Facebook site where you're
Yeah.
just like commenting on your friends and all that. So I don't know. Yeah, like I said, you're very different. That I don't think it's like, oh, I hate this one. Like I think I don't know. Your site is definitely better in a lot of ways.
We can
So
coexist. But yeah, but
Yeah.
like people have preferences. Some people will prefer TA to us, and some people prefer us to TA. But at the end of the day, I mean, my focus is our sites and our network and us building our platform. It's great to have other people doing the same thing as what I'm doing, which is effectively what Rich is doing over at TA. So it's great that people are out there living their dreams effectively. Because I mean, for me, that's effectively what it is. Because I was doing law, so I could have been a lawyer. So I went from that to running my own company with Alex and talking about video games and actually reaching people that I want to reach because they're part of my kind of culture of people.
I think you made a really good
Yeah, I would say
decision.
much more. Sounds like a much more fun
Don't need
career.
another lawyer.
Especially not in America, right?
Oh God.
Are you has actually? I guess let me rephrase this question. Has the website grown bigger than you ever thought it would be?
Oh
Like
yeah,
when you originally, thought about it back in 2006. Has it exceeded your like expectations essentially?
absolutely. Like so originally, we set it up just because the .com site had gone into a bit of a ghost town. There was nobody updating it, so we set it up because we wanted to game with the same people that we'd met on the site originally. So we didn't set it up to be a business. We didn't set it up to do anything. We set it up just to be a forum and an information hub for people like us and like-minded gamers like us that were intrigued by the achievements, that wanted to go out and get the achievements, that wanted help boosting the achievements and stuff like that. So originally, it wasn't even set up with. It was just we didn't think it'd take off achievements. We just thought, oh, this is cool, and there's going to be people that really like these things. So let's create somewhere that people can come to and join in with us. And that was the good thing originally, that we were a really tight knit community, which is how our community picked up such a lot of kind of steam in the early days, because there was probably 50 people that knew each other by first name and surname, and they knew all about their lives, and they gamed together and they'd boost together, and everybody be really friendly. So when new people came on the forums, they'd be like, oh, hey, man. And everybody would kind of go out of their way to help them. Now, you know what it's like on the internet. If you go into a forum, for the most part, people end up calling you a dick after 20 minutes, or
Yeah.
or just everybody ignores you. So back in 2006, when we'd set up this little family of people, of gamers, that were all like-minded gamers, all really friendly, and then more people started to come, and then more people started to come, and then they'd get their friends involved, and then suddenly, like the first couple of months, there were like 10,000 people come in, and then a couple of months down the line, there was 100,000, and then like 18 months down the line, there was 500,000 and 750,000. And I was talking to Alex, and I was like, shit, I just didn't see this coming. So this was just with one site. So then we started two sites, and then that instantaneously got a lot of traffic. And this was a point when PlayStation trophies came out. Joystick tried their hand at trophies, and they didn't last very long because we were doing it. We were nailing it. We were nailing the community. We got some great guys there. So out of nowhere, we'd gone from reaching probably like 500,000 people a month, which is incredible on the internet, to reaching 1.5. And then it was like 2, then 2.5, and 3. I mean, at one point last year, we reached like 3.5 during the Christmas period as well. So not in my wildest dreams did I ever think it would be this big. Um, so every day I'm grateful that I'm getting to do something that I love doing, and that I've been doing for such a long time. Almost a quarter of my life I've been doing this. So it's been a few years, but not once did I ever think, oh, this is a great business idea. I just thought, oh, this is fun. And then eventually, when it got too big and I couldn't do two things at once, I was like, I've got to make a decision here. Do I carry on trying to be a lawyer, or do I just try and turn this into a business that I can make a living off and work on full time? And I went for the latter, and it was probably the best decision I think I've ever made.
Sounds like it for sure.
We're all gamers here, so obviously we're going to agree with you.
But now you guys have set up your office and everything too, and you're big into streaming with the Resro network and everything.
Yeah, yeah. That was like the kind of natural evolution for us. That first would be an Xbox site just for achievements and stuff like that, and we'd have everything catering to achievements. But we got to a point, and I can't remember when it was, but there was a conversation that me and Alex had, and at the time Minty, and I was like, we could do so much more here. We've got an audience of Xbox gamers that come here religiously every day. They know us. They'll want to read the news here as well. Why let them go to other sites on the internet when we can give them everything under one kind of umbrella on one website? So then we started to add news, and then slowly we added reviews, and then we started to add previews, interviews, and then I've been pushing video for a long time, and the Rosero thing is just something that we needed a unifying brand. All the time it's been XBA and PST or X360A and PS3T, that it was a bit of a mouthful, especially when you go to trade shows and stuff. It's like, who do you work for? And it's like, XBA and PST. And they're like, which one? And I was like, okay, Xbox achievements. They're like, oh yeah, and PlayStation trophies. Like, oh yeah. So we tried to create this umbrella, but one of the things with the umbrella was that I wanted to do more video, more previews, like video previews, so people could see gameplay before they buy the game, and more streaming as well. So not just the fact that people can see the games before they're launched or before they buy them, but they can come and hang out with us for 9 hours a week, Tuesday to Thursday. Like we do 3 hours Tuesday, 3 hours Wednesday, 3 hours Thursday. They can come and hang out with us in the chat and just chat bullshit with us or whatever they want. I mean, it's their time effectively. So yeah, I mean, it's the natural evolution that we needed to do more video stuff. And in order for us to do more video stuff, we needed to get everybody together, because even though we all lived in the UK, I lived in north of England, which is probably 2 or 3 hours from London, which is where Lee and Rich lived. And it was a hassle getting everyone together. So we had to find a way to get a bit of an office, like a hub for us to all come in, to all make videos, to all be together as like a unit. And so that was what I've been working on for the last, probably, I'd say the last year. I mean, and now it's starting to actually come through and materialize into what I envisioned. But it's a 3-year plan, so it's actually a 4-year plan. So I've still got plenty of time to see where that goes. But it should be a good ride, hopefully.
Yeah. I've watched a couple of the streams, the Assassin's Creed one, and caught a few of the Dragon Age ones.
Oh, cool. The more the merrier.
So what are you most excited for next year, whether it be your site or certain games coming out? Anything you're super psyched for?
Well, in terms of the site, I'd say the thing that I was talking about earlier on, that I wasn't talking about earlier on, that I was talking about. That for the site for me would be amazing, and I think everyone will love it. But obviously, whether it comes off, I don't know. But we are working on it. In terms of games, I think next year is going to be an interesting one. I think we haven't seen a lot of what's in store for next year. Obviously excited about Halo 5. I've already played the multiplayer and it's great from what I've played so far. It feels more like Halo 2 than it has done in a long time, which to me is nothing but a good thing. I've got to say Uncharted 4, after that trailer they put out the other day, that excites me a lot.
The gameplay from the PSX event looked really good.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Batman as well, I'm hugely excited about, even though I much preferred the Batman games when they were linear, like Arkham Asylum. But we get the Batmobile, right? I mean, that can't be bad.
No.
That's
just
pretty
wanna see
much
what-
all of our
No
top
Metal
games.
Gear love?
Yeah, Metal Gear as well. I mean, next year is going to be a great year. The first year after launch is always a transitional year. I mean, you've only got to look at the 360, and it was exactly the same. It was almost a ghost town for a long time. But I would probably say that I want to see what BioWare's doing next, because I want it to be next gen only. And I'm a big BioWare fan because they write the kind of stories that I want to play. So I'm hoping it's a new Mass Effect that'll get unveiled sometime next year and then be out early 2016. But
Yeah.
I think I'm more excited about the announcements that will come next year because it's been quite a slow start to the generation. And it usually, I mean, Gears 1, what was that, 2007, was it?
2006.
2006.
So that was like a year after the console launched before you had something that you went, holy shit. So the problem with this gen and last gen, though, is last gen, as soon as the 360 came out, they stopped supporting the Xbox. This gen, as soon as the Xbox One came out, they were still supporting the Xbox 360. So we're seeing this horrible kind of crossover transition where games like Dragon Age Inquisition, which are great, and I loved it, but it's still effectively a last gen game. There's nothing next gen about it. So I think we're stuck in that kind of transitional period where publishers are too scared to leave behind last gen, and it won't be until then that we actually start to see what this gen can offer us. And games like Uncharted 4, that gameplay thing, obviously next gen only. Batman, next gen only. And I think apparently the new Doom as well is meant to be mind blowing. That's what everyone said out of QuakeCon anyway. So that's next gen only. So hopefully when we actually start to see some more of this next gen only stuff, we will actually start to get our minds blown a little bit. Hopefully anyway.
Can you imagine a next gen only Mass Effect game? Oh my.
Yeah, just imagine a next gen only Gears of War as well. Like,
Well, first we're gonna have the Gears of War collection because Microsoft's got to make some of their money back on the purchasing the IP,
yeah, absolutely.
and then we'll have Gears of War 4.
Gears of War 4 with the trillion grunts running around in the background.
Yeah, but this is it. I mean, so far this gen, we haven't seen what it's possible. Right? I mean, obviously visuals, great, yeah, brilliant. Dead Rising was like a glimpse of the future. Look how many zombies it can render, and look, no load times. It's like, holy shit, this is the future. But then since then, there's been a lot of cross-platform stuff. I'm going to keep using Dragon Age as an example because Dragon Age is a perfect example of just a shinier last-gen game. There is nothing next-gen about it, really. So I'm just waiting for like the Gears, the next-gen Gears, the next-gen Halo, the next-gen Mass Effect, just purely next-gen. I think that at the moment, we're in a bit of a kind of limbo. We don't know what's coming, and we don't know what to expect. But I get the feeling that whatever comes, it will be pretty damn impressive.
We're all hoping so.
Otherwise,
it's exciting times.
$450 on an Xbox One, right?
Yeah.
You know, the one thing I'm surprised nobody's asked you yet, I just kind of thought of was, how do you get all those lists so early sometimes?
Wow, that's like asking Domino's what's in their
Trade secrets? Trade
Yeah.
secrets? I've always wondered how you. I know because some developers will actually send you the list.
Yeah.
You know, and I always was wondered how you get them early. And there was things I've read, you know, how you guys got in trouble for putting the Rockstar stuff up early.
Well, no, not really get in trouble, but the amount of times I've been threatened with legal action is ridiculous. Like, it's probably in the hundreds now.
Really?
No.
Over achievements?
Yeah, ridiculous, right? I mean, not a lot ever happens, but they do like to threaten. And there are times when we will pull them down temporarily because we are involved in legal disputes with publishers and companies. Eventually, they just get re-added. But anybody who sues us or attempts to sue us for stuff like that is completely ridiculous because it's like, hey, you're giving us free PR for our games and coverage. Can you remove that, please? We don't want anybody to know our game exists. So, but it's always a good sign, I say, that when the achievement list pops up on the site, people are like, oh, this must be out soon, which is almost effectively like a pre-sale advertisement, right? It's like, before this goes on sale, here, it's coming. So
Yeah.
you've only got to look at our site now, and you can tell what games are coming out soon, especially all the Windows Phone games that are just on the site at the moment. But you can tell when the DLC is coming out. It gives people some kind of indication of what is actually happening in terms of releases. Because over the years, games are meant to be released. Perfect example. Do you remember the game Alpha Protocol?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
That was a game that was originally meant to come out, I can't remember now, October time, and the release date came, nothing. And people were going to us, why isn't the achievement list up? And I'm like, well, there is a reason why the achievement list is up, because it's obviously not ready. So for weeks, we knew that game wasn't going to ship just because of the time frame we usually get the lists before the game ship. But without us, we kind of knew that because we had the lists. And if somebody would have seen the list pop up on the site, they would have gone, okay, the game's coming. So it's this kind of, I think it's like a nice little notification. But some publishers don't agree with us. We have had a few, we've changed our policies a few. Like we've started to hide secret achievements till launch, just in case there are spoilers.
Yeah, that's the only reason I could see why a publisher or developer might get mad, just because, sometimes there's story-related secret achievements in there.
Yeah, the good example was Catherine and Atlas. Every single achievement was a spoiler, basically. But when I looked at the list, I turned around to Atlas and I said, hold on a minute, none of them are secret achievements. And they're like, yeah, that's not the point. And I'm like, what do you mean that's not the point? If you don't put secret achievements in, then and you put spoilers in your achievement list, then that is your fault. That is nobody else's fault. So that went on for about 2 weeks, that one did. That was fun. But I still don't think some developers, especially the Japanese, understand achievement lists. Like most of our legal threats have come from Japanese developers and publishers, which is frankly ridiculous because it's free PR. But yeah, we do get in a lot of trouble, which is, it's fun. It keeps me on my toes.
There are a few games that actually you have achievement lists for that never ever came out.
Are they really?
Yeah,
Never came out? Well, NBA
that
Live
NBA Live game that
Oh,
was
yeah.
canceled. Remember?
Oh god, which says a lot about how far in the development cycle it actually got before they cancelled it.
A lot of
much
phone
done.
games were like that too. I remember a lot of phone games had achievements that never came out, like Deal or No Deal and Backgammon
Oh wow.
and stuff, and they never showed up even though the list was up.
So the NBA Live came out this year, though, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
came out
yeah.
the last 2 years. They canceled it. What year did they cancel it, Magic?
13, I think.
Yeah, you guys had the achievement list up, and then like 2 days later, it's like, oh, we're canceling the game. And you could actually go on eBay and buy a copy of it. I'm not sure if you get any achievements in it though, but
The game
So
was
that's,
Oh
basically
yeah,
out
if you made it out
when they
into the
canceled
wild,
it.
like
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
how
really?
close to. Yeah, that's how close to. They had packaged it and everything, and fuck it, this game's terrible.
cancel it.
that's going to be worth a fortune in a few years, then, right? To anyone who's got one of those, right?
Yeah. Or maybe not because
Collector's
the game's
item,
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hold on. That ET game, that was the worst game ever, and there was a documentary on the fact that they dug it up. It's like, what? So yeah, and you're going to get a look at some of these collectors. They're not bothered about quality, right? They're bothered about, you can't get this. There's like probably 1,000 copies out there in the wild.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah, I
there
mean,
was
like-
that one original Nintendo game like a year ago that sold for 100,000 on eBay
Yeah.
because it's so rare.
Is that the one with the
But-
gold disc?
Yeah, it
Gold-
was some kind of game that was only available for tournament play. So there was
Yeah.
only like maybe 100 of them ever made, and they were selling for ridiculous amounts. I mean, that could be
Well-
NBA Live.
Just look how much those gray PS4s are going for. The ones that they only made 12,000 of.
15 grand, right? Was that the
Yeah,
one
they're
that
going for
sold the other day?
quite a lot of money, just because there's only so few of them.
Yeah, I wanted one, but in the UK, the way they're distributing it's ridiculous. They put up this website with loads of puzzles and shit. I was like, I haven't got time for this. Just give me a website where I click buy now and that's it. So yeah, but apparently the website that they were using to give them away in the UK has been down for most of the day. So yeah, it hasn't worked out as they planned.
Will?
But I think that's about it for our interview.
Marvelous.
We didn't hold you up too long. That went a lot longer.
No, yeah, sorry. I do go on a bit, like I said.
No, it was great.
Thanks
But yeah.
for coming on to the show.
No, anytime. And I'll be happy to come back as long as it's not in a busy period.
Yeah, I'm sure this was. Yeah, we need to catch you in the summer sometime where it's not tons of games coming out. week to
Absolutely.
week.
And there's nothing out, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. It was fun, guys, and it was awesome. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
Guys,
thanks. That was the best.